Hi, I'm Old Sneelock. Welcome to another episode of Old Sneelock's Workshop. I'm thinking about moving up closer to the Hudsonvilles to be closer to the kids. And we've been looking at houses, and I think we can manage to sell our house for a decent price. We can buy another house up there. It would be a project house because that's how you manage to move your way up. You buy something that needs some work and you put the work in it. Now, I'm not talking about flipping houses, because if I was a model for flipping houses, I've moved into houses that needed work. Let's see. There was Central Park Drive, and there was Rolling Meadows, then there was Dunks Road, and now here we're on East DE Avenue. So, in the 4 houses that we've moved into, it took us 11 years to get tired of the first one. It took us 20 years to get tired of the second one. Well, no. It took 5 years and a marriage to make me move out of the house on Central Park Drive. I worked on it. It was a nice house when I was done. Then we moved to Quincy, which was a nicer house, but it needed some work done to it. So we lived there for 11 years. Then we decided we wanted to move up closer because business was being a little funny in the latter part of the 80s, early part of the 90s. We wanted to move up closer to Battle Creek so we'd have a better opportunity to find a job. And we did. We lived on Dunks Road there for 20 years. Moved there in 1991. And lived there until 2010. So, actually 2011. June 2011 we moved here. So, that was 20 years, plus a few days. Then, after living there, it was an old farmhouse, and the old farmhouse had one problem. It wasn't insulated, and I didn't have enough money to go through and insulate the whole thing. It needed a new furnace. And Ryan had gotten big enough that he was getting ready to move away from home. He was going to college. There was 2 of us, and that house was a lot bigger than what we needed. At least we thought so. And we thought we wanted to move closer to the Borges because I was having heart problems. And there was some concerns that I wasn't going to make it. So I said, okay, fine. We'll go get something that's a little easier to take care of. It's smaller, doesn't cost as much to heat, doesn't take as much time to get it going and keep it going. And I can relax a little bit because I can't do all the stuff I used to do. Well, that was about 2 years after I had the last surgery. And I was feeling a little peaked. Well, now it's been 12 years at this house. And I'm feeling good. I'm not having any problems at all. That mechanical heart valve's ticking away. Now, who knows what could happen next 10 minutes. I'm no soothsayer. I don't know those things. But I do know that I'm feeling pretty good, and I'm not concerned about the future. So we decided that even though we really love this house, and it's been a very nice house for us, our son, his wife, and their 2 grandchildren live up in Hudsonville, closer to her parents. I can understand that. And we're driving 50 miles to get there. So, it's not the expense and it's not the time. It's just we don't get to go up as often as we want to. So we started looking at houses up there, and when we first looked at them, it was crazy money. Because we were looking in Hudsonville. Hudsonville's real close to Grand Rapids. It's a much nicer town than Grand Rapids. So people who wanted to work in Grand Rapids and live somewhere else. Hudsonville was in driving range. So we pretty much gave up on the idea of moving to Hudsonville. That's when we started talking about having a pole barn put in the backyard here. And we kept going and going, and we didn't like the idea of doing that. I was okay with putting one up, but I thought it's really not what I want. I want to be able to walk out in the backyard, and if I see a woodchuck chewing on something I don't want him chewing on, I want to be able to take him out without having the neighbors call the cops. If I want a bonfire in the backyard, I can have a bonfire in the backyard without risking having somebody turn me into the thought police for, oh my God, making CO2. Global warming. So, we pretty much gave up on the one and gave up on the other, and we were pretty much resigned to our fate of living here. And I was thinking, well, I don't want to put $10,000 into a pole building in the backyard. I don't want to put $20,000 for sure. So, the other night, I was looking on Zillow, and there was a house on Zillow. Now, I'd been telling my wife that there were houses up there for $150 or $150,000. Not $150 it was $150. I'd have bought it that night. But there's houses up in that area for $150,000 because I saw one that got sold, and she didn't believe me. So I went looking, and I said, well, there's no more $150,000 ones, but there's a couple of under $200,000 ones. Well, I never thought I'd be talking about buying a $200,000 house, but you got to remember that $200,000 is worth about $100,000 from last year or 2 years ago, because, well, you know, the whole printing money thing and inflation and making everything crazy. Spending $200 for a cart full of groceries that I used to spend $50 on, and it wasn't that long ago. So we're looking at a house up there. We're thinking about moving. We haven't finalized anything, but I am making some preliminary changes. For one thing, I'm cleaning up the backyard. It's not a bad thing to do anyways. I mean, it never hurts to have a nice clean backyard and things picked up and put away. And so I'm burning off the firewood that had laid on the ground and got punky. I've cut up the brush tonight, got that taken care of. I've pulled out trees out of the fence row. I still got to go through there and cut some more stuff down, but I think I'm gaining on it. We had 3 days of rain after better than 3 weeks worth of no rain. We got 3 days worth of rain just when I decided to come out here and start working in the yard, because the idea came up about 5 days ago. We worked our way through it. It took about 2 days to decide whether we were going to do it or not. Then we went looking, and now the real estate agent is coming on Friday to give us an estimate on our house to see where we can go. First house I bought, I looked at a bunch of them, and when I was looking at houses, looking in Coldwater, because that's where I was born and raised, and I thought, well, okay, I should be able to buy a house for $12,000. And that was about a year's wages for me at the time. This was 1973. So, well, actually, no, it was 1971. So, 1971, I was making about 12 grand a year. I said I could spend a year's pay on a house. That'll give me a good mortgage, and I should be able to afford it. Life should be good. Sorry about the bouncing. Well, I looked at all the houses in town for $12,000, and I decided that, you know, $12,000 wasn't enough. And when I went to the bank and talked to the banker, he said, yeah, you found a house and you like it, but you really don't want to buy in that neighborhood. He was taking a big risk. This thing called redlining, that is considered to be illegal. But he said, if you buy that house, it's going to lose value. It's not going to gain value. I don't want to give you a loan to buy that house because I'll be taking your money and you'll be losing. He said, you want to move in this part of town. If you're going to buy a house in this part of town. He circled it on the map. So I went looking in that part of town. And I found a house for $15,000. Put a down payment on it. Bought it. Was very happy with it. Then I got married. And the rest of it is pretty much history. Having the opportunity to buy a house is one of the greatest things that living in America has given me. I know other countries are able to do that too, but here in the United States, you can buy a house with pretty much nothing down. You got to be careful doing that, but you can buy a house with a very low down payment. My first house, I paid $1,000 down. I had $2,000 in the bank, but the banker said only put $1,000 down on it. You don't want to spend all your money on that. You're going to need some money to fix up the house. That guy was a good man. So I took the money and I fixed up the house, put new kitchen in it, and converted the bedroom, one of the bedrooms into the dining room. Turned out really nice. I lived there 5 years. I bought it for 15. I sold it for 23. Did okay. Quincy, we bought the house. The downstairs wasn't finished, so we finished it. It was a tri-level. The downstairs was just concrete block walls and studs. That's where the laundry room and the washing or the water pump was, and the furnace in that little laundry room. So Lydia and I got together and we put up a bunch of plasterboard and painted everything and put in a fireplace, fixed it up, and we paid $45 for it. We lived there 10 years. We had it sold for $80, and that deal fell through because, well, people buying it didn't have their head in the right place. They ended up losing a bunch of money because they had to pay me the earnest money. That's a long, sad story on all the way around. Ended up going to court and getting my money back, so we ended up selling the house for $60, which is still $15,000 over what we paid for it, and I wasn't happy about it, but I wasn't terribly upset. So after that, we sold the house in Union City, bought it for $60, sold it for $120, $130, and bought this house, fixed it up, and now we're going to sell it for about the same percentage of improvement, because the value, you got to go with the value of the money. You can't just go with, well, I bought it for this many dollars and I sold it for this many dollars, because the dollar changes. Somebody's got a sliding scale on the dollar bill. It says this dollar bill is worth 10 cents in 1960s money, or it's worth 11 cents in 1960s money, or it's worth 5 cents in 1960s money. And it floats up and down depending on where you're at and what you're doing. Well, if I can afford it, do the financing, make this thing work, depending on what the guy says this Friday. Dennis is an old friend. He sold us this house. We've known him for quite a long time. He sold my son his house, helped him find it. So I trust him. Of course, you know, Reagan said trust but verify, and I've thought that was a great idea from the very beginning. So push coming to shove, we're going to look at a price on the house on Friday. Might take him a couple of days to actually come up with the numbers, and we'll see where we go from there. It would be nice to have one big barn with a work shed in there, place to work on the car, place to build things, place to keep things, but we'll just have to see how it works. If you have any suggestions for a new video, questions about today's video, or any of the other videos on the channel, just drop a note in the comments. You know I read them all. Thanks for watching. That one board there must have had some creosote on it or something. They tore down an old shed and left a pile of wood. And I used some of it for projects, but that one board, it looked like a nice board, but I just never used it. Now I'm glad I didn't. Can you imagine that being a part of a dining room table or a shelf on a wall? Don't know what kind of wood it is. Hard as a rock. Smells kind of pine, but it's got a lot of sap in it. Okay, thanks for watching.
This video is not to be viewed by anyone under the age of 13 in the U.S. or 16 in the European Union without the express written permission of the parents or the legal guardians of the underage person. Such written permission must be on file at the local government entity in charge of enforcing the rules and regulations established by the FTC. Anyone violating these terms is admitting by default that they hold harmless the owners and operators of this channel. Any and all questions should be addressed to your local branch of the FTC.